The sons of God in Genesis chapter 6 are named, counted, and their exact oath is recorded, not in the Bible, but in a book the church councils work to keep out of it. If suppressed history and the texts they remove from Scripture are what you came for, subscribe right now and hit the bell. This channel goes straight to the manuscripts, and the fragment numbers mainstream scholarship never connects. Now, let's go deeper. Genesis gives you 4 verses, and then it runs. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair. They took wives of all they chose, and their offspring became the mighty men, the giants of old, the men of renown. That is it. 4 verses, and Moses moves straight to the flood, as if none of it needed explaining. Whoever compressed that account into a single line knew exactly what they were leaving out. Because the full version survived. It survived somewhere else, in a book that names all of it. That book is the Book of Enoch, and it was excluded from the canon almost everywhere. The one exception is the Ethiopian church, which kept it in Ge'ez, the old liturgical language of Ethiopia, preserved at Aksum for over 1,000 years, while the West simply forgot it existed. Not ignored, forgotten. And it was not always fringe. The Epistle of Jude, verses 14 and 15, quotes Enoch directly, by name, prophesying against the ungodly. A canonical letter cites it as scripture. Then, the councils quietly buried the source it was quoting from. Here is why that matters. This is not a medieval invention. This is a preserved document, and the manuscript record proves it. 11 separate Aramaic copies of Enoch were recovered from the caves at Qumran, among the Dead Sea Scrolls. 11. That is more copies than most books that stayed in the Bible. There are Greek witnesses as well, portions preserved in the Chester Beatty Papyri. And in 1773, the Scottish traveler James Bruce carried 3 complete copies back from Ethiopia to Europe, which had assumed the entire text was lost. So, when you read what it says, you are not reading a rumor. You are reading a document that 11 scribes at Qumran thought worth copying, that the Ethiopians guarded for a millennium, that a letter in your own Bible quoted out loud. And here is what it says. Where Genesis stops, Enoch chapter 6 begins, at the exact same seam. It picks up the sons of God, and it refuses to hurry past them. The text records that they were 200. 200 of them, called the Watchers, who descended in the days of Jared onto the summit of Mount Hermon. Not a poetic mountain, a real one, on the northern border of ancient Israel, still there, snow on it half the year. And they had a leader. The text names him Semjaza, chief over them, with the chiefs of tens listed beneath him, each one named in turn. Genesis gives you an anonymous plural. Enoch gives you a roster. But before they touched a single daughter of men, they did something first. The 200 bound themselves by a mutual curse on that summit, an anathema, so that no one could turn back. That oath is the hinge of the whole event, and the traditions that remember it do not stop at the Hebrew record. Chapter 7 of 1 Enoch picks up the moment the oath ends. The 200 go into the daughters of men, and the women conceive, and the text records what is born from that union. Giants, the mighty men of old, the same phrase Genesis uses and then abandons. Enoch does not abandon it. It gives their scale, their appetite, and the ruin they bring on the earth that fed them. Then chapter 8 gives us the curriculum. Azazel teaches men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates. He teaches the working of metals, the bracelets and ornaments, the use of antimony, the beautifying of the eyelids, metalworking, weapons, and cosmetics. Others teach the reading of the stars, the enchantments, the cutting of roots. Read that list again, not as a list of sins, as a transfer. Every item on it is knowledge, arts that mankind did not have and was never meant to have, poured down from above by beings who had sworn an oath to do exactly this. That is how the text frames it, not corruption of morals, corruption of information. And here is where the Hebrew record stops being alone. The Mesopotamian tradition preserves the Apkalu, The 7 antediluvian sages, half fish, half man, who came out of the water before the flood and brought civilization and its arts to mankind. The same shape. A pre-flood transfer of knowledge from a non-human source to human beings, remembered by a people who never read Enoch and the Book of Giants, found among the very same Qumran fragments that gave us Enoch in Aramaic, names the offspring directly, Ohia and Gilgamesh. The Gilgamesh dropped into a Jewish text about the sons of the Watchers, dreaming of the destruction that is coming for them. 2 traditions, 1 flood story, the same characters. Now the root. Genesis 6, verse 2. The Hebrew phrase is bene Elohim, the sons of God. For centuries, the sanitized reading has been the Sethite interpretation, that these were simply the righteous male descendants of Seth marrying the wicked daughters of Cain. Righteous men, nothing supernatural, but the phrase itself refuses that reading. In Job 1, verse 6, the sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and Satan comes among them. In Job 38, verse 7, the sons of God shout for joy at the founding of the earth, before a single human existed. The same phrase, elsewhere in Scripture, unambiguously means divine beings, members of the heavenly assembly. It cannot mean human men in Job and human men in Genesis. The root does not bend that way. And once you accept what it plainly says, the sanitized reading collapses, and Enoch and Genesis are describing the same event with the same actors. Before we move on, stop for a second. What you just heard is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense written out next to the original notation. The passages, the chapter cross-references, the translated text. I put all of it into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Take 5 seconds, grab it, and come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. Everything so far has been the crime. The descent onto Hermon, the oath sworn so no one could turn back, the forbidden knowledge poured into mankind. But the Book of Enoch does not stop at the crime. Chapter 10 records the reckoning, and one command inside it is the strangest passage in the entire book, what the archangel Raphael is ordered to do to Azazel and where. Read it slowly, because the specificity is the whole point. First Enoch chapter 10. God does not address Semjaza first. He turns to the archangel Raphael, and the command is exact. Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness. Make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudail, and cast him there. Dudail, a named place, not a metaphor for punishment. A desert ravine, a location with a name, where the one who taught mankind the making of swords and the working of metal is to be thrown down and covered. The text says to place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and to cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see the light. And he is to remain there until the great day of judgment, when he is cast into the fire. That is the sentence. Chapter 10 does not soften it. And then comes the line that turns the whole crime inward. The whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. The whole earth charged with the corruption he taught. Not just the giants, not just the women. The earth itself, indicted for the knowledge that came down Mount Hermon. This is the answer Genesis withheld. Moses gave you the sons of God in a single verse and hurried past. Enoch names them, names their leaders, records the oath they swore on the summit, and now records their sentence, down to the name of the ravine and the archangel who carries it out. The question the title asked is answered in full. The identity, the crime, the reckoning, all of it preserved. Now let me be clear about what is the text and what is me. What I say next is my reading, not the record. Read the parallel traditions against each other. The Hebrew of Genesis 6, the Ge'ez of First Enoch, the Aramaic of the Book of Giants at Qumran, the Apkallu of Mesopotamia, the antediluvian sages who brought the arts of civilization before the flood. Set them side by side, and the same shape appears in everyone: a descent, a forbidden transfer of knowledge, and a reckoning. The text does not draw that line between them. The structure does, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is the through line. The account Moses reduced to one line was too consistent across too many separate traditions to be invention. Hebrew scribes, Ethiopian monks, the sect at Qumran, the tablet writers of Sumer, none of them copying the others, all of them remembering the same descent, the same transfer, the same judgment. That is not how legends drift. That is how a memory is kept. And it survived every attempt to erase it. The councils that left it out of the canon. The loss of the West's own copies, until Europe assumed the book was gone entirely. Someone at Aksum kept it in Gayas for over 1,000 years. Someone at Qumran sealed those Aramaic copies in a cave and let the desert hold them. And in 1773, James Bruce carried 3 copies back out of Ethiopia, and the text the church had buried was in Europe's hands again. Think about what that means. People who wanted it gone worked to remove it, and other people, quieter, refused to let it vanish. It is here because they chose that. Tell me which source carries the most weight for you: the Aramaic at Qumran, the Gayas at Aksum, or the parallel in the Book of Giants. I read everyone. If you want the next investigation to reach you, subscribe and hit the bell. The next one is already on screen.